Hey everyone, this is Leanne from Of Love and Shiplap and the founder of Sublimation graphics and tutorials here on Facebook. If you're catching us on YouTube, please be sure to come join our Facebook group where all of our videos air live before they're added to our YouTube channel unedited. And of course, if you're catching us live on Facebook, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Those links are in the video description depending on where you're watching. Today's tutorial is going to be pretty short, but I did want to make sure I did a video answering one of the most common questions we see, and that is how to change the color or pattern of something that's in a design in Affinity Designer. Now, this is specifically relevant to PNG designs, not really any other type. SVGs, you can of course edit the layers specifically, and we do already have a video on that called How to Jazz Up an SVG in Affinity Designer. So if you're working with a vector file or an SVG file, check out that video. But otherwise, this one is just going to be about PNGs, since sublimation files are typically in PNG format, and that means that you cannot easily make changes. You can actually make them in Affinity Designer, mostly under the pixel persona. I see a lot of people who say, oh, you can do it like this in Photoshop. One thing that's really important to understand is that Affinity Designer is a vector-based program. It's the equivalent to Adobe Illustrator. But the pixel persona that has been added in to Affinity Designer gives you some really powerful tools similar to Photoshop. If you wanted the Photoshop alternative, then you would choose Affinity Photo instead of Affinity Designer. The programs have different uses, but I think that the raster editing interface that is included in Affinity Designer helps answer a lot of questions, or meet a lot of needs, I should say, that people have. Before I dive in, I just want to remind you guys that if you are interested in learning everything there is to know about Affinity Designer and knowing how to make really impressive designs and work all of the tools and the features of this program as it relates to sublimation, then be sure to sign up for the Affinity Designer Digital Graphic Design Masterclass for sublimation that we have put together. It is learn at your own pace. It is over 100 hours of video content. There are design challenges throughout the course, and sharing gives you an opportunity to win prizes. And unlike other courses, this course goes so far beyond just showing you how to use some tools. The live videos that we do, like this one, this is pretty straightforward to just get you to understand how to achieve something you are trying to do. So in this case, it's going to be about changing colors or adding patterns, however you need to text or part of a design that you've already purchased that's a PNG. So in our free videos, we just go straight to the point because that's what people who are coming across these videos are looking for. But in the masterclass, it is super in depth. You learn how to use every single tool, and not only how to use it, like so many courses are out there that are just like, this is how you use it. But we have all these design challenges integrated into the course so that you can learn how to apply what you're learning in a real way that you are going to use it for sublimation designs. So the masterclass is incredible. If you haven't checked it out, definitely head to the link in this video description to check it out. And if you are in our Facebook group, be sure to just click on the group topic tag, the hashtag ADMC, to see what other people are saying. People are raving about this course. That makes me feel so good to see people's progress and how much they're learning in just, 15% that they have completed. And we're seeing these amazing results, and that can be you too. So definitely sign up and take advantage of that. So let's go ahead and get started. You can see here on my screen that I have selected 3 graphics to show you a few different options for either replacing a color, removing a color, or adding a special fill. I wanted to make sure I did this video because this really is a super common question that I see all the time, and one of the most often references is to these messy bun mom skulls. Now, of course, there's a bunch of different ones out there. This one happens to be from Debbie Does Design. She generously let me borrow it for this demo. I see people all the time asking about how to add a fill to your sunglasses or a special pattern or a special color to the bow or change the hair color or change the eyes, whatever it happens to be. This is very common, like I said, with this messy mom bun design. And it's always important to make sure you check the terms of use for a graphic before you make changes, because not everyone allows you to make changes. And also remember that just because you make changes does not mean you can sell that graphic in a digital format. Most of the time, you can still use it for your physical completed printed goods. Just make sure that you check those terms of use, because every designer's terms of use are different. Now, Debbie goes through a lot of extra steps to make sure that there is a whole bunch of varieties of hair color, skin tones, bow patterns. Anytime she does stuff like this, I really commend her on that. I don't personally do that, but I also try and avoid things like this that people are going to want a million customizations on. So this video will help you be able to make those changes, whether it is on a PNG you found elsewhere or on one of these. Now, it is important to note that this is about a PNG graphic editing, not any other type of file. So let's go ahead and start. All of our graphics that we have, if we pull our little layers panel out, you can see that they all say that they are an image. In order to be able to make these edits, they all need to be in pixel format, and we're going to be using that pixel persona to make our changes. You want to make sure that your graphic is sized to the size that you actually want it. Now, I have this at the max size. It's like 14 inches. But if I were to right click and duplicate this for a second, and I'm going to get rid of our larger one and just use the second one, and I'm going to shrink this all the way down. So let's say I imported it and I just imported it at a few inches. So that's what it's at right now. To convert this to a pixel, all you do is right select and hit rasterize. But see, when we now bring this up, it starts to get a little bit grainy. Now, it might not look so obvious right here, but if we bring in the original, and then we look at them close up, you can see a big difference in our original that has not been converted to a pixel and the one that we did. So this pixelation happens because when you rasterize, you are locking in that resolution of the graphic. So you want to make sure the size is where you want it before you do that. PNGs, although are not unlimited, are not able to be limitlessly scaled the way the SVGs are. They are still pretty tolerable to almost 30% size increase before they start to look pixelated. So let's just zoom back out, and we'll get rid of that one that we already converted since it was too small. And we'll take our larger one, and as I already said, we're going to right click and then select rasterize. This is essential. You have to right click and select rasterize in order to be able to make those modifications to these colors. Next, we're going to enter our pixel persona by selecting the little middle icon that looks like a group of squares up in our navigation bar. Now, if you are just trying to make changes to a large selection of the design, you can easily just use your rectangle marquee tool or your elliptical, and you can just click and drag and isolate the area where you plan on making your changes. Now, if you wanted to fill this bandana with a different color, you would choose your flood fill tool, which is this one that looks like a paint bucket. You'll come over here to your color wheel or swatches, and you'll fill this circle with some sort of a color that you want to use. And then you'll just click to fill the space in which you would like to fill. Now, your flood fill tool is only going to work within the parameters of these marching ants. So if we try and fill the hair down here, it does not work. If we try and fill the eye right here, it's only going to fill it up to the marching ants, up to the selection area that we made. So within your selection area, you can make all of those changes. And using these marquee shape tools is just a way to isolate a larger area without having to really do a refined details area. Anytime you have stuff selected, if we click back on our move tool, make sure that you do not move anything, because if you do, it will completely separate your design. It doesn't matter if it's lined up, sorry. And so when you want to deselect it, you hit select and then deselect, or Control D or Command D. Now I want to undo a bunch of the stuff that we just did. So I will just go back. There we go. Go back up to here in our history panel. I went back so far, it's back to an image. So I'm going to right click and rasterize one more time. Now let's say that you just want to add a pattern to a specific area that's filled with a solid color. If you want to do that, what you're going to do is go to select your graphic first, then go to select and choose select sampled color. Now the default always picks white or black, but in this case we want the gray. Now you can see it's picking up gray all over the place, which is not what we want. So to eliminate all of this extra areas that it's picked up gray where you see those marching ants, we can decrease our tolerance. And in this case, going down to 1% does actually remove a lot of it. We'll hit apply. And you can see that it did actually remove all of the smaller zones that we didn't want. And we only have the marching ants around our bow, not including the black parts, the lines, just the gray itself. So now we'll click back over to our designer persona, which is the blue Affinity icon. In the designer persona, we're going to use the fill tool. You cannot apply a bitmap pattern, so a digital paper. You can't apply that in the pixel persona as a fill. You can do it in the designer persona. So you make sure you stay selected, come back over to the designer persona, click on your fill tool, which is this little rainbow wheel looking one. You're going to go under type in your context toolbar and you're going to select bitmap. It's going to prompt you to add some sort of a paper or a picture, whatever it is that you want to choose. So we'll just use these from our video last night. And then you'll see it automatically fills it. Now, this center node here is the middle of your paper. So you can actually move that up over top of the bow. And then you can adjust these arms to adjust the size of the fill. You just want to make sure that you don't do it so small. See, if you do it small, you have these stretched out lines on the side. You don't want to do it so small if that happens. You want to fill it accordingly. So filling it with the fill tool in the designer persona when you're filling a pixel is a little bit different than when you use the fill tool in the designer persona on a vector type layer. So just remember that you don't have all the same options in your context tools panel that you do if you are filling a vector shape. So you can also move these around to rotate how that is filling. And once you're set with your fill, make sure you go to select and deselect. And now we've gone ahead and added in that bow pattern, or the pattern to this bow, and we've still maintained all of our lines. Now, back in the pixel persona, I am just going to show you one more thing. And that is if you wanted to fill an area that didn't have a bunch of extra lines, so the bow has all these fine lines that are outlining it, which makes it very time consuming to use something like the selection brush tool. It is easier to just do what we did, which was that select and select sampled color. But if you wanted to just fill the eyes, for example, then you could use the selection brush tool. You have the option to add or subtract if you need to take away. You can adjust the width from the slider. And if you have snap to edges selected, it's going to automatically snap as you're moving it to the outside edges of whatever it is that you were trying to fill. So then you can go ahead and use that flood fill tool for that and change the color in there. So in this case, the white is like an empty space. So it did not fill it in. But if for some reason it picked up the white, you would just, using that selection tool, you would choose subtract, and then you would go over the white part. And, sometimes you have to zoom in to get really close on those lines, or to actually and decrease the width of your slider to do that. So go ahead and zoom back out, and we're going to deselect, and let's go over to our pumpkin. So this came from Creative Fabrica. We're going to repeat the same steps that we just did. So we're going to right click and rasterize to convert this into a pixel graphic so that we can make those changes. In this one, let's say we wanted to change our text. You can do it both ways, or all three ways, I guess, that I just showed you. Select the rectangle marquee tool, select around the text, select your flood fill tool, select the color that you wanted to make it. We'll say we want to make it the blue of this pumpkin right here, and then fill it in. If the letters are separate, you'll have to fill each letter separately, but you can easily make that. So if we wanted to make that outline part black, we can click on our black, and we can zoom in and make sure that we're just on that orange outline, and we can make that black. And then we could even go in and fill all of those little spaces in between. And just like that, we have changed our text color. So changing text color is really easy. And this is also pretty valuable to know if you're doing other types of printing, like white toner printing, because you may need to adjust some colors and also knock out colors. So in the world of white toner printing, the more dead space you have, the better. If you've seen my white toner videos, you know that I talk about this a lot. Adding dead space can be done quite a few different ways, but if you happen to have a solid design like this, an easy way to create dead space is to use a shirt that is one of the biggest colors. So in this case, that might be orange. This is the same kind of approach that you use when you do vinyl. If you don't want to have to, if you have a 4-color vinyl design, you only want to layer 3 layers worth of vinyl, so the 4th color comes from the shirt. It's just a little trick to make things feel softer. Now, for this one, you don't want to have this selection tool selected specifically. You can use this if everything that you need is confined to that area, but like if we were going to knock out the orange, we obviously need below, above and below this. And also we don't want to if we were going to do the black, we only wanted to knock out the black on Thankful, for example, we don't want to also knock it out on the pumpkin. So using this, it depends on what your use is, on which one of these selection tools that you will choose. So I'm going to hit select, and I'm going to hit deselect. I'm going to select my graphic again, and I'm going to go to select, and I'm going to choose select sampled color. And now I'm going to pick the orange, and you can adjust your slider to get it more. We don't want it to pick it out of all pumpkins, so we'll decrease it some. There we go. So it's just that from pumpkin. We'll hit apply once our marching ants look like they're in the best location. And then we will go to edit and go to cut, or you can hit the delete key on a Windows keyboard, but on a Mac, this is not an option, I learned. So when you hit cut, it will remove that. And then if we go to select and deselect, you see that you do just have this part that's left behind that was a lighter shade of the pumpkin. And you can actually go in and repeat the steps and remove that as well if you wanted to have this completely open and dead. But if you were going to put this on an orange shirt, if we just select the designer persona and click our shape tool and just put something that represents what our shirt would be on the back, so we'll just do something orange-like. And if we put that below our image, you can see what it will look like on your shirt. So you can, if you're going to do a light yellow shirt, that's what it would look like. And you can make your decision on if you think that you need to go in and remove the second color as well. Now, if you're doing white toner printing, choosing to use this selection option to knock out a certain color or to knock out black or to knock out white is highly recommended over using the knock me out feature in the RIP software. And the reason why is because when you use the knock me white out, for example, in the RIP software, it's not only going to knock out the obvious white that you see, but it also knocks it out of any colors that you see that have white. So if, softer colors that use some white, it's going to impact that end color output, which is why this option actually works a lot better for that type of use. So we showed you how to change your color in your text. We showed you how to delete a section if you wanted to delete some part of your graphic. We showed you how to fill with a pattern and select specific areas that you want to fill in multiple different ways. So now let's go over to these sunglasses. Another common thing that I see is people trying to fill a sunglass with a pattern. It's going to be the same as what we just showed, but I'm just going to show you another application. We're going to right click and rasterize again. Important first step. Now with this one, there is nothing here. This is completely empty. But if we go over to our pixel persona, then we're able to use any of our selection tools once again. So I recommend for this type of project to use the selection brush tool. And once again, make sure you have that snap to edges checked. And we want to hit the add button. And we'll select it and it'll automatically snap to the edge of our sunglasses. Now, if you want to fill with a solid fill color, you can use the flood fill tool and you can just choose any color you would like to fill them with. But if you wanted to add a pattern, you're going to do just like we did on our skull. You're going to click back over to the designer persona and you're going to use the fill tool of the designer persona. And here you can actually choose, like if you wanted to add gradients. So you chose like the conical gradient, you can add gradient colors and you can click on your color box here to be able to modify that. My computer just started doing maintenance, so sorry, we're almost done with the video, but it is showing a little glitchy. So the conical, as you adjust it, you can change, and this one does have a sharp start and end point, which you can change that by just choosing a different type of fill. You can choose the radial or the elliptical. And then you can again choose the bitmap option, which will give you the ability to select any digital paper, photograph, anything like that that you want to fill. So I always see a lot of people trying to fill sunglasses with beach pictures or American flags, and this is how you would do that. So if we select our patriotic glitter flag, it will fill it. And once again, you can adjust the center point by moving that node, and you can rotate this. You can rotate that. You can move it. You can stretch it. Sorry guys, my computer started maintenance, so now it's going to run slow on me because it had to do it while it was in the middle of this apparently. Okay, so then you can adjust it that way. So that is using your fill tool in your designer persona, and choosing the bitmap option will give you the ability to fill something like this inside. So it's honestly really easy to either change colors or add different types of pattern. You can do that on really anything. The main thing you want to remember when you are doing it on a sublimation graphic is, first, make sure that that is an allowed change to your graphic based on the terms of use of the original designer. And Second, always make sure that you size it first and then right click and rasterize. So this is how you would fill those different spaces or remove space if you needed to remove it, whether you do solid fill or pattern fill. You have all your options here. This applies to literally anything: text, sunglasses, hair bows, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be the same steps. So hopefully you found this easy to follow. It is actually a pretty easy little trick. And like I said, it's probably one of the most common questions that we get. So I'm glad that we were able to do this video tonight. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them below. And once again, if you want to learn everything there is to know about Affinity Designer and become an expert, then definitely go ahead and sign up for our masterclass. You will not regret it. And it's a tax deduction. So it's a win-win in both, in all categories, actually. So since my computer is updating, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I will see you guys again tomorrow.